All right, so let's talk. Welcome back. Hey. The Holy Roman Empire is this like empire, and you would say like, oh, are they from Rome? Are they Italian? No, it's a German empire. It's Austrian. Are they super religious? Yeah, they're hecka Catholic, but they're not a Roman Empire per se. And by the end, if you're looking at this, like, yeah, okay, it's an empire. They got this stuff here in yellow. Don't get confused because my background slide is yellow. So don't be like, oh, hey, did I control the whole slide? That doesn't make any sense. Okay, just think. Okay, there's a border there. There's a border. So anyway, we're gonna explain how Charles V went from controlling like, whoa, all this stuff to controlling less stuff, and then when he retires and all that, but more on that in a second. First things first, I'm the realist. This is the future Germany here. And you might remember when we started talking about Luther, we started talking about the Germanic states and how they started picking sides. Well, Charles V was the Holy Roman Emperor at the time. You might recall him from such great works as the time he summoned Luther before the Diet of Worms. It was like, you need to recant. And he was like, nah. And Charles was like, oh my gosh, are you serious? We're going to excommunicate you. And Luther's like, problem is, I think the Pope has contradicted himself, and I cannot and will not contradict Scripture, because to do so would be against conscience and plain reason. So help me God. Amen. Mic drop. Out! So Charles V kind of was like, oh man, I messed up with Luther. You know, Protestantism is a thing now. So he gets involved with France over Italy and the German states. And this is a struggle we call the Habsburg-Valois Wars. And the Habsburg-Valois Wars pits the Holy Roman Empire, H-R-E, ride or die, versus the French. I abbreviate HRE for Holy Roman Empire. That makes sense. I abbreviate France because those extra 3 letters are just too much for me to write. Anyway, it's over land. Now you say, wait a second. I thought that some of those Germanic states were becoming Protestant. It makes sense to me that the Holy Roman Empire, a Catholic empire, would be at war with these Germanic states. So why is France involved in this? Okay, it's like this. France sees an opportunity to take their frenemy out. And I said frenemy, that's right. The Holy Roman Empire is this popular Catholic girl. And France is like the other, perhaps less popular Catholic girl. And all of a sudden, Holy Roman Empire, she's starting to have trouble with some of the people in her friend group. Okay? Starting to. Like some girls are starting to talk behind her back. So what happens over here? It's like, wait a second. I'm going to use this against her. I'm going to send weapons and arms. You really shouldn't do this. And don't do that. But the analogy is falling apart. But you understand what I'm saying, is that France is trying to help these enemies of the Holy Roman Empire, in this case the Protestants, in this situation, and they do so by fighting against the Holy Roman Empire. So indirectly, France is helping the Protestants because they hate the Holy Roman Empire and they see a chance to bring her down a notch. It's like Gossip Girl, where you have the blonde girl was in Green Lantern, Serena, I think her name was, and her and Blair are like friends. But at the same time, they're always maneuvering, and there might be a situation where it's like, oh, look, I have the opportunity. Blair finds out that Serena is going to be in her mom's fashion show. And so Blair's like, oh, I got to sabotage this fashion show. But Blair, it's your mom. You're making money off of this thing. But Blair's like, nah, I'm taking you down. It's the same thing. France is willing to hurt the Catholic cause in general by supporting the Protestants as long as it hurts their mutual enemy. This comes to a temporary solution in 1555 with the Peace of Augsburg. And I've got there, Mr. Oliver, you misspelled it. No, I didn't misspell it because it is Latin. In Latin, this says, he who rules his religion. So basically, we're just going to accept that these Germanic princes, whatever that religion they are, is what their subjects will be. So say you got Saxony and you got Frederick, the dude that was helping out Luther. He's gone Lutheran. So he who rules, Frederick in that case, his religion, Lutheranism. So everybody in Saxony gonna be Lutheran. What about other religions, such as the Mennonites and the Calvin? No, this only is for Lutherans or Catholics. Those are your choices. Okay, this is not an era of religious freedom. This is simply a like, all right, look, okay, we'll compromise. And the other religions are like, what about us? It's like, no. Okay, look, it's hard enough for us to compromise and not kill each other over this. Don't get more things involved. The official end of the war is, I'm going to slaughter this, Peace of the Cateau Cambrai in 1559. But most people just remember the Peace of Augsburg because that's where you get the whole he who rules his religion thing. And that's a compromise that kind of goes forward. Cateau Cambrai is the thing that actually ends the fighting. But France and the Holy Roman Empire still don't like each other. All right. So Charles V, that was a huge failure, really, the Habsburg-Valois Wars, because part of his former empire, the German states, now have a bit of independence in that they can choose their own religion. What about the Dutch people? What about the Netherlands? Well, Charles V was pretty well liked by him. He spoke Dutch. He was kind of mellow with them. When the Dutch start moving towards Calvinism, the Holy Roman Empire, led by Charles, is all like, oh, man, you really ought to not do that. I do not approve, bros. But he kind of is like, I don't want to, it's the Dutch bros, and, here in Fresno, Dutch bros is really big, so, we don't want to mess with them. Meanwhile, Charles divides up his lands. What? Where did that come from? This is later. He's old. He says, look, I don't want to do this no more. My life has been nothing but conflict. First I had Luther, then I had these Habsburg-Valois wars. How stressful. He retires. He doesn't die. Well, eventually he does. But he retires. And so he says, look, son, you are going to get Spain and the Netherlands. Oh. What's his son's name? Okay, it's right there, really. This is not a very hard question. Philip II. Mr. Oliver, wasn't Philip II the name of Mary I, Queen of England, the Catholic Queen? Wasn't that her husband's name? Yes, the same dude. And why not? Look at this dude. What a hottie, right? I don't know, I guess. So you're like, oh, well, Mr. Oliver, there's other yellow portions of the map. Who do those go to? Oh. Got to take care of your bro. So the German and Italian territories go to his brother, Ferdinand I. Get used to that name. A lot of Ferdinands over in the Holy Roman Empire. All right. Then Charles V is like, out. And he goes off and does his thing. And so now the Holy Roman Empire, as it was in the early part of the 16th century, is divided up. West side is going to be Philip II. East side is going to be Ferdinand I. Spoilers, we're going to worry a lot more about this guy than this guy. Okay, just totes. Oh, Philip, you just took over. What are you doing? Look at this. Boom. One slide later, Philip II decides, oh, he's got to be a big man. He's in charge of the Dutch now. And he's like, you know what? Dad was a little soft on y'all. I guess I'm going to need to destroy the Calvinist uprising. So he raises the taxes on them, starts sending in people to get all killy on all these Calvinists and force them to convert. And we've seen this one before. Who does Spain send in when they want to religiously oppress people? That's right, the Inquisition. And here's this fella, the Duke of Alba, possibly, but probably not at all, related to Jessica Alba. You could see the resemblance. They're both very, very pretty people. Under orders from Philip, with one L, by the way, Philip II, the Duke of Alba goes over there, and he establishes a harsh justice system. How harsh is it? It's so harsh that the Dutch call it the Council of Blood. Right here, this is like, I guess this is the Duke of Alba. I don't know. He looks like a monster or a ghost. And like people are all like, oh, you know, I'm going to line up here. And then these people are like, oh, we'll approach you. And he's like, don't get too close, son. And everybody's like, oh, scary. All right, what's the point of that? I can't read any of this because this is all in French. But the point is, it says duck. I don't think it means duck like a quack quack duck, though. Anyway, so Philip II, basically his government with the Duke of Alba, it's really mean to these Protestants in the Netherlands. They really do not like it. They're not fans of the Council of Blood. I mean, for gosh sakes, they nickname it the Council of Blood. That's not something you say about something you like. You're not like, oh, you know what, that made me bleed. I loved it. Not usually, unless you're kind of creepy and weird. Here's a famous painting. It's called The Slaughter of Innocents. It's by Peter Bruegel. Technically, it's part of the Northern Renaissance, which you might have figured out from Peter Bruegel. And it shows here Spanish troops descending on a Dutch town, slaughtering them. Is very pro-Dutch. Again, you could probably tell that from the fact it says The Slaughter of Innocents, not if it was more Spanish in the favor of them, it would be like the slaughter of those who deserved it. Here we have like, look at dead people. I'm begging. You die. Dogs, dog. Dogs were very big in the past. Dead baby. Dead kid. All kinds of madness. This really seems like a terrible day. Listen, I'm here all alone, just recording this by myself in my classroom. So I'm trying to be enthusiastic. I'm not trying to make light of my friends who are dead here in 1566. If it's too soon, I apologize. I'm just trying to keep it peppy. So the Dutch are like, hello there, this is good Queen Bess. Queen England, the Virgin... Queen England? That's not my name. Queen Elizabeth, the Virgin Queen. What do you need? And the Dutch are all like, we need help, yo. She's like, what do you need help for? What is that all about, eh? It's like, well, we need, Spanish are attacking us, as Mr. Oliver's been talking about on these previous slides. So we would like money and or troops. And like, well... I suppose we could help you out there because, we got a situation where if we don't help you, I mean, we're probably next, aren't we? You know, they're going to come for us. And also, the wool trade is suffering as a result of this war on the continent, and we need that wool. You got to share your sheep. So, with English... Bye-bye. So, thanks to English intervention, the Dutch are able to get help and win, kind of. In the northern part of the Netherlands, they get independence. We will call this the Union of Utrecht. The southern provinces remain under Spanish control. Philip is not cool with that. So much so it calls for a change in font. And Philip is all like, I'm not happy about that. So he calls up the Pope. And the Pope is like, hey, if you take control of England and return them to the Catholic faith, I will reward you with much money. And Philip's all like, they both hang up. Bye. And so the Pope's like, yo, you got to get over there and make England Catholic. So Philip's like, oh, shh. It's time to meet the Armada. By the way, Philip II in the Spanish Armada. If your name is Philip and you have a band and you don't call it Philip and the Spanish Armada, you are doing yourself a disservice, my friend. Call your band the Spanish Armada. You're the front man, Philip. That's money. So Philip sends the most blessed fleet, that's the nickname, of this called the Spanish Armada, to go destroy the British Navy so that they can pave the way for a land invasion. Because you can't just march your troops across the sea because they'll drown. So you have to do them by ship, and if you still have a bunch of Navy people like shooting at your ships, you're going to sink, and then again they'll drown. So that would be very negative for those army people. So they got to destroy the British Navy. The Spanish Armada is awesome. Okay, they should win. They have the numbers. You know what the British got? That's right. They got me. She's not even on the phone right now, and she's just yelling that out. Elizabeth I is all like, yo, we got to fight for our survival here, people. So she gets all inspirational. The English ships are more maneuverable, and they're all like, oh, bang, 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 and they win. Okay, good news is this is AP European history, so you don't really need to worry about the battle. But if you just say like, oh, the English ships were more maneuverable and faster, and they managed to defeat the Spanish Armada, it works. Big defeat for the Spanish Navy. Possibly the most famous naval battle of the 16th century. It's probably one of the most famous naval battles, period. Oh my God, am I there? Did I go back in time? No, it's just a picture. It's a painting. Meanwhile, in Germany, France and the Holy Roman Empire still hate each other. In Bohemia, soon to become the Czech Republic in the 20th century, soon being a 400-year difference, some Catholic tax collectors go to see some Bohemians, and they're all like, yo, please pay up. You owe taxes to the Holy Roman Emperor. And they're all like, we'd rather throw you out a window. So they do. They throw these Catholics out a window. Footnote, I should have mentioned that. The Bohemians were Protestant. They were Lutheran. Okay, so they throw them out, chuck them out a window. The Catholics say, angels appeared from heaven, gently holding and guiding the men down to the ground so they landed without being injured. The Protestants are all like, yeah, they just fell in a bunch of poop. That's not what they say. They say a different word, but we're keeping it G-rated here, okay? Anyway, that's a good vocabulary word, defenestration. Defenestration means to throw someone out a window. This is a wonderful world we live in. And sometimes it's hard. I know there are bad days. But the fact we have a word that is specifically meant to address what it is called when someone is thrown out a window is a great, great language that we have. And many languages have defenestration. We have this word. It's beautiful. Try to use that word. Like next time like you drop something out a window, just be like, oh, I accidentally defenestrated that. Oops. It's classy. So, told you, get used to these Ferdinands. So here's Ferdinand II. He's the new Holy Roman Emperor. Ferdinand I, he's out with the old, okay? We got him. Here's his kid, dog. And his kid's not named Dog. I was saying there's a dog there. And this guy's all like, I guess those Bohemians need to be taught a lesson. And once more, over here is France. And France is all like, ha ha, another opportunity to go to war with the Holy Roman Empire. So, we will support the Protestants. I apologize if you're French. I'm just bored, and I'm trying to make this exciting just in case you're also bored. So, I apologize. I'm sorry, France. You were not very nice to me. I went there. You were nice to me. I threw up in Versailles, that was embarrassing. It's true. I ate like bad cheese. It's really not important right now. There are 4 phases. phases of the 30 Years' War. You got the Bohemian phase. Again, nowadays this is Czechoslovakia. Who wins this one? Gotta give that to the Catholics. Holy Roman Empire. Check! French supported them, but they lost. Then we got the Danish phase. Oh, who wins on that one? Holy Roman Empire. Check. Then the Swedish phase, where it involves Gustavus Adolphus, who is one of the only Swedish names you need to know for the AAP European History test. And again, French supported the Danish, French supported the Swedish. Holy Roman Empire, win! So finally the French are like, if you want something done, you gotta do it yourselves. And they're like, shh. And so I just discovered a secret, just a second. All right, so that was my text message tone, sorry. How am I supposed to remember? What is this? Big dogs swim fast. Bohemian, Danish, Swedish, French. Big dogs swim fast. Now, again, I know they don't in real life especially, but I wanted you to be able to remember the different phases. So at least you remember, like, oh, generally speaking, where is most of the fighting happening? Oh, Bohemia. Okay, there's some Danish fighting. Sweden is involved. And, oh, the French. Boom. You know everybody involved in the 30 Years' War. You just got to remember the Holy Roman Empire part. But basically, it's right there on their doorstep, so it should be easy. This is a picture of dead people. Is there a dog? I bet there is. I bet there's a dog just off. It's just like back there somewhere. Here's Albert Dürer, another dog right there. People love their dogs, even in the past. Here's another Northern Renaissance guy, again portraying this time the death that comes from the 30 Years' War. What is this? Somebody put this into my lecture. I guess one of my kids did it. I rate kings depending on how pimpin' they look. Gustavus Adolphus is a straight up 10. Well, he's the Swedish leader. He did lose his phase, but I would have to confess, he does look a bit pimping. Okay, so in 1648, surprisingly 30 years after the war begins, that's why they call it the 30 Years' War, the Holy Roman Empire settles with France, and they recognize the independent authority of all the German princes. This is the nail in the coffin of the Holy Roman Empire's hold on Central Europe. The Holy Roman Empire no longer has drastic control over these German states. They're pretty much independent at that point. Bad news, there's about 300 of them. So that's a little bit rough. The Catholic Church is no longer involved in German affairs. Augsburg, that whole principle of Augsburg stands, where you have he who rules his religion. Only big difference is that it's he who rules his religion, so you can be Catholic, Lutheran, and then they add Calvinism. So that's nice. That's a nice gesture. And France can do whatever they want because they won. And they also take Alsace, which is this little charming little border place around the border with Germany that doesn't really exist just yet. It'll become important like maybe next semester when we start talking about Germany as a state that actually gets into wars with France and stuff. So it's worth remembering that maybe that France first took it here. So let's kind of bring it back to where are we now? It's 1648. What religion is everybody anyway? Well, we got the Eastern Orthodox fellas over here. That's Russia and the Ottoman Empire. Ottoman Empire is not Eastern Orthodox. Why are they the same color? They would be Muslim. Oh, it says Muslim. Okay, so over to here. So this is all Eastern Orthodox. Eastern Europe, pretty much, with the exception of Russia, obviously, pretty much Catholic. You'll notice Poland will be stubbornly Catholic. You'll notice it goes down into the Papal States. You've got a lot of Catholicism there. That just makes sense. Northern Europe is staunchly Lutheran. You'll notice that basically northern states tend to be very Lutheran, but the southern Germanic states do tend to be Catholic. And then over here, France is very Catholic, but you'll notice there are areas of Calvinist influence. Okay, there is these swaths here of blue. Now, I don't know who the genius that made this map is, but they made the same. Look at this. See, I'm drawing here. This is the ocean. That's the English Channel there. And here is France. Here's the land. Like, maybe if you have a pretty good monitor, you can tell the difference. But at a casual glance, that's a bit confusing. Guys, it's a computer. You can use more than, like, 6 colors. You know, it's open-ended. It's like 256 back when I was first using a CGA monitor. One of those CRT monitors, big old things, not even a flat screen. Anyway, up here in Ireland, you'll notice they stay pretty Catholic. This is relevant later. And the Church of England is now taking hold. That is there. And over here in parts of Ireland, notice there are some Catholic pockets of England. But again, under Elizabeth, the whole don't ask, don't tell, Elizabethan settlement is keeping them under lock and key. And then in the north of Scotland, you have Calvinism in the form of the Presbyterian Church that was championed by John Knox. Also, why did they make yellow and orange so close to each other? You could make it bright orange, bros. All right, it's important. We've got to talk about the Catholic Counter Reformation. Were the Catholics just sitting on their hands the whole time, just being like, oh, yeah, guys, whatever, you know, you guys just go ahead and you have your Reformation. We'll just chill. Heck no. The Catholics are all like, yo, we're not going to take it. No, we ain't going to take it. We're not going to take it anymore. They do a number of things, and probably the most famous thing they do is they call the Council of Trent, where the Pope basically says, look, we need some changes. Actually, it's not even what he says. It's not changes. He says we need to address the criticisms that have been levied upon us by these Protestant people. They even try to basically reconcile with the Protestants. They invite the Protestants. They're sending invitations to all the Protestants, being like, hey, come back. Okay, it's all going to be, we don't want to be bros again. All Catholic. But the Protestants by this point have been so successful that they're like, nah. Footnote. When we say the Catholic Counter Reformation, technically there's two different things if you really get into this. There's the Catholic Reformation, and then there's the Catholic Counter Reformation. The Catholic Reformation would be stuff like the Council of Trent, where they're trying to work on stuff within, and the Counter Reformation is where they're trying to fight the Protestants. For example, 30 Years' War would be part of the Counter Reformation, whereas Council of Trent, as I just said, would be Catholic Reformation. For the purposes of this class, because it's just an overview, we're going to just lump them together because it's easier. So what does the Council of Trent end up doing? It goes on for many years. You end up with 2 different popes in charge there over the course of it. And it reaffirms the primary beliefs and doctrines of the Catholic Church. In other words, we were right about everything. Everything we said was true. Everything we said was correct. Luther was exaggerating and or wrong. And, by the way, we're awesome. Also, you know, hey, have there been some abuses of power? Sure. But we already had rules, which is actually factually correct. They did have rules against simony, church offices for sale, and things like that. So they're like, all right, fine. We will we'll make sure that discipline, as far as people breaking rules and getting punished for that, that's addressed. We'll make sure that the education of the priests, that's addressed. We'll just, make sure everything's cool, okay? But were we wrong? No. Again, Counter-Reformation would be guys like Ignatius of Loyola. He is tasked with a new thing called the Society of Jesus. And these are the Jesuits. They will be important later. There's a lady version called the Ursuline Order of Nuns. That's them. Basically, their job is outreach. Their job is to go out into the communities, educate people, spread the good word, help the sick, feed the poor, etc. Loyola Ignatius is a former soldier, And he's like a stern disciplinarian type, but he's very good at his job. Now, a mistake students make is they're like, oh, he's a former soldier, therefore he still murders people. Nope, that is not what he does. He is now in the peace business. It would not be a very good outreach if you like went around killing people. And again, here's social work, outreach, living amongst the people, helping the people, etc. A lot of really good work is done in the Catholic Church's name, and really, it works. Then they say, you know what we need? We need a new style of art, an amazing church style. And again, see this word here, ecclesiastical? That is a fancy way of saying church art, okay? So it's like the official art form of the Catholic Church at the beginning. By the end of it, they are straight up, it's kind of secular. But at the beginning, it starts off as a very Catholic style. And the idea is, look, you might be an illiterate peasant, but you can walk into one of our places, one of our churches, you can see this art, and you get like a whoa kind of feeling, right? You're like, whoa, this is amazing. I am totes into this. I am feeling this in my heart. Okay? That's what they want. They want to stir your emotions so that you're like, wow, the Catholic Church is fantastic. Isn't this great, this thing I'm a part of? The colors tend to be super bright. The darks tend to be darker than dark, like they seem super dark. Counter Reformation is the style of art, and the paintings and sculptures should speak to the illiterate rather than to the well-informed. Okay, again, you're trying to capture the hearts and minds of the little people here. So let's look at what would a church look like, for example, if it was built in this style of architecture. Oh, I don't know. How about this? What about St. Peter's? Remember what they were selling all those indulgences for in the first place? Well, see the style here? It's overpowering. This is like human size somewhere down here. This is big. It's overpowering. It's grandeur. You're like walking, it's like, whoa, man, this is like really big and cool. And the Catholic Church has really got it going on. It's like when I see a rapper, if I saw Kanye and he was just dressed all normal, I'd be like, what's wrong, Kanye? But if I see him like, decked out in his swag, I would be like, that's quite swaggy, sir. I respect you and know you must be successful, and I respect you as a result of it. In this case, I'm not comparing, the analogy falls apart. But basically, Kanye represents the Catholic Church here because they're trying to let you know, by like, hey, this is swag, okay, as the kids say. And, you got to respect that swag. And people are like, fair. It's fair. Here's the interior. Look at that. Look at that. Look at all that stuff. Look at that. It's overpowering. Some might even say a bit too much. A bit overly complicated. I am not a fan, personally, of the Baroque art style, but if you tell me there's a Baroque church around the corner and it's 15 miles down the corner, I don't know why a corner is 15 miles, but it is, I will go that extra 15 miles because I love to look at it. Because it's always something interesting and it's always really, really, really like ornate. Compare that with your Lutheran churches, which are very simple. So you definitely got styles emerging here. So let's see some art. Here's St. Francis in Ecstasy by a guy named Caravaggio. St. Francis is this fellow right here, and he is in the woods. This is St. Francis having a religious moment portrayed here. Again, look at the darks in the background. You have all the perspective, all that stuff you already had in the Renaissance, but you've got this man, this is St. Francis, this monk, being visited by an angel, and the way it's lit, you see this is all brown, obviously his robe is brown, but that stands in such stark contrast to the background, because what's important here? The divinity of the angel. This is saying like, hey, the presence of God is here. One of his, capital H, representatives is on earth, and it calls your attention to it. This is a different kind of scene, but again, It's reminding you of the suffering of Christ. This is not, again, not for the little people, or not for the big people. This is for the peasantry. This is for the little people, the illiterate and whatnot. They're looking at this going like, wow, Jesus really suffered for us. They see the cruelty in the face of this guy. I guess he's some Roman torturer guy. And they see the agony in the face of Jesus and the way he's lit, again, white, symbolizing purity, again, divinity, because it's, Jesus. And the darkness in the background. Notice the Romans are shrouded in shadow here. But it makes you realize, whoa, okay, whoa. And it gets to your heartstrings. It's not going here, it's going here. David and Goliath. Through the power of God, David has slain this mighty warrior. Again, notice the lighting. Here is the good guy. Here is David. And here is Goliath, felled, both defeated and also on the ground, and getting his head chopped off. And again, the darkness. Salome with the head of the Baptist. Supposedly, according to the Bible, there was this guy that called for the head of John the Baptist. So this woman who was faithful had to present the head to her master, and she is looking away. She is upset. This is notable. You can tell who the good guy is here because she's here, but they can see the darkness around her, around the bad guys. This guy is interestingly lit. Because he's the bad guy, they want to put your eye on him, but because of the darkness all over him, he's a bad guy. So it's interesting. And here's the head of John the Baptist, white, to kind of symbolize his purity and goodness, but also he has been killed, so he's pale and his face has lost its life, lost its vigor. Another story of females in the Bible. Judith, who I believe was, it's an ugly subject, so sorry about this in advance, but Judith is, she is beheading this guy that raped her, I believe, if I remember my biblical history right. And here she is. This is gory. And here you go, well, what about your thing, Mr. Oliver, about saying that generally speaking, lighting corresponds? Yeah, this is Holofernes, and I do not think that the same symbolism is meant to apply here. He has a red sheet symbolizing death and blood, and just in case you didn't get it, there is literally blood spurting out from his neck. So there's that. A powerful female figure from a biblical story, and do we have a female artist? We sure do. Let's see if I can get this right on the first try. Artemisia Gentileschi. Yeah, there we go. So this is very notable to have a female artist who is portraying things from a woman's viewpoint. This is the indignity of what it was like to be a woman in this time period with so much sexism and terrible injustice committed against them, and she's getting a little revenge. And it has biblical basis too. Now we're starting to move away. This is still religious, dog, but we got Peter Paul Rubens, and Rubens is going to be the guy that takes it from religious stuff, but then he's going to be over there on the secular stuff too. This one, Elevation of the Cross, we have Jesus on the cross. This is an image that you are probably at least casually familiar with. He is being hoisted up, but then compare that with a later Rubens work called The Garden of Love, where you just got a bunch of rich people chilling out while little baby angels, cherubs, are like, hoo, 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 because they symbolize love. Look, these two are dancing, and the cherub is pushing them together. Oh, it's so cute. I hate cherubs, all right? Real talk, I do not like little naked flying babies. I don't like Cupid at Valentine's Day. I don't like cherubs. No disrespect to cherubs. I'm just saying personally, I like my art cherub free. Keeping it 100. This one, if you've read that Da Vinci Code guy, he wrote a book where he talked about this. I want to say it was called like Monsters or something. It was the first one in that series, but the second Tom Hanks film. Anyway, this is Saint Teresa of Avila, and she is being visited by an angel. And again, ecstasy. Now nowadays, ecstasy means like some kids think like, oh, drugs or naughty stuff. Ecstasy just means extreme happiness. Okay, so you could see where it was appropriated by people who were like, hey, you should try my drug. It makes you happy. Don't do drugs, kids. Okay, just say no. That's what Mr. O says. But St. Teresa here is kind of showing like, hey, ladies, there's something in it for you too, because she looks quite happy. We will leave it at that. Leave other interpretations to other people. This is not the original picture. See what I did there? That was Baroque music being played while you looked at Baroque stuff. Yo, dog, I heard you like Baroque, so I put Baroque in your Baroque so you can Baroque while you Baroque. What about the Age of Exploration? Well, we're just going to talk about a couple of things kind of briefly here. We should know about the different motivations for European exploration. Trade. They want to find new places to trade with and things to take from the new places they find. Fame and fortune. They want to become famous. They're curious. They don't know what's out there. One cool thing about humans is we're always curious about what's out there. And a desire to spread the Christian faith. That's missionaries. And I wanted to give you some way to kind of remember that. So, the fat cat meowed. That is a fat cat. That is not my cat. At one point, my cat was a bit fatter. This is not my cat. It is a beautiful kitty. Oh, hello. Hello, how you doing? You should know about the different new technologies that allow the age of exploration. Now, in my class, I don't spend a ton of time on this. I just figure, look, you guys already talked about exploration when you were younger. So, I mean, look, just remember that stuff. What you do need to know, I'll cover in here. But the other stuff, Okay, so they had better maps as a result partially of things like the compass. The astrolabe. The astrolabe allows them to kind of figure out where they are in relation to the stars, what we would call latitude and longitude, and what they start using as such. You got faster ships that can go further. If you ever played Age of Empires, you know you can't go off of or Civilization. You know you got to stay right there on the coast, otherwise you might lose your ship. But now they can go across. If you're not a video game nerd, then never mind about what I just said. And you got better weapons. Pa-pow! Ladies, you're welcome. That's right, I cleared out for this one. This is Prince Henry the Navigator. Portugal doesn't get the spotlight very often. Here we go. Portugal, where you at? Here I am. Or, he's not British. I don't know why he talks like that. He's all like, yo, I totally support navigation. In fact, I'm going to open up a school for navigation. I would call it the School of Navigation. Thanks, Prince Henry. Of course, you've heard of Columbus, who sailed the ocean blue in 1492, the same year the Reconquista ended too, over in Spain, where they got rid of the Muslims and Jews. It's really quite horrible. Columbus, you know, he discovered the New World. You probably also know that's a bit dicey to say he discovered the New World, because he wasn't even aiming for the New World. He was aiming for the West Indies. The trick wasn't that people thought that the world was flat. I know that's what your elementary school teachers told you, but this is false. The problem was they didn't know how big the world was. So Columbus thought, okay, if I sail west from Spain, I'm going to get to the other side of Asia. He didn't realize there was a whole continent in between Europe, and Asia. And it happens to be us, well, at least where I'm recording this, North America, Central America, South America. We just call it America. And he didn't know about that, so he discovered it, kind of. And, you know, there were sort of people here before, but he discovers it and goes back to Spain, and he's all like, guys, you will never guess what I found. A bunch of slaves and gold, which is really quite horrible, and you can make up your own mind on that one. It is significant, though, from a historical perspective of, well, yeah, he brought Europeans over to the New World, what we call the New World. I mean, the Indians, the Native Americans, they were already aware it was there, and that did change history. So we can't totally discount it, but at the same time, you could see where it might be problematic since it killed over 20 million Native Americans, having the Europeans come over and bring their diseases and stuff. So there's that. A bunch of explorers did stuff. If you're really interested, you can pause this right now. I was just pretending to pause in case you were like, wait a second, did I pause? Ferdinand Magellan was the first guy to circumnavigate the world. He went all the way around it. He actually went the route that is on the map, not just like this. Make sure when you are talking about Magellan, it's circumnavigation, not circumcision. I've had that appear in essays from students more than once, and while it is always hilarious, it is the wrong word. Some came over to look for a mythical city of gold, the road to El Dorado. It didn't work because there is no mythical city of gold. There's two conquerors that are worth knowing about. There's someone knocking. These are my children. My children showed up. Say hi, kids.
Hi.
Do you have a message about the Spanish conquest of the Aztecs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Spanish shouldn't have conquered them. They're mean.
Meanies.
It's fair. It's true. Oh, sorry for the interruption, everybody. My kids just stopped by, so I decided, you know what, let's just incorporate them. Anyway, I just want you to know certain names. Like the Aztec Empire, they were felled by Cortez. I've pictured left, the one that says Cortez. And the Aztecs are represented by this, I guess, represents the entire Aztec Empire. I don't know. Anyway, he divides and conquers, basically. Much is made of the idea that he portrayed himself as a god, taking advantage of native superstition, but this is kind of exaggerated. Most historians don't buy that the Aztecs truly believed that he was the embodiment of a god or anything like that. He won. He won. The Incas, it's really hard to find pictures of the Incas. I want to just go on record as saying that on Google Image. Pizarro is the one that actually defeats the Incas, so I want you to know that. Similar, not as many men as there were Incas, but he manages to take them out through a combination of deceit and I mean, you could give the guy credit. I mean, he was good at what he was doing, just what he was doing was, you know, tricksy. Of course, as soon as the Native Americans are defeated, they are enslaved, and it's actually, if you really think about this is awful, of course, but the reason that they eventually had to move to African slaves is because disease from Europe, which the Native Americans had no immunity to, was responsible for killing something like 25 million Native Americans. So they had a labor shortage. So that's what caused them to start looking elsewhere. The cycle of conquest usually goes like this. You have explorers, then it becomes conquistadors, conquerors, then missionaries follow the conquerors, you have permanent settlers, and then it becomes an official European colony. You could see the value of gold and silver from Spanish America is quite huge. You know, back in 1492, nothing basically, and then you're, you know, going up, 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 up. Problem is, this creates inflation within Spain because they are on the gold standard. So if you suddenly introduce a ton of gold, gold becomes less valuable. Then the African nations begin to supply slaves to populate these new colonies, which are becoming quite profitable. This, of course, is the transatlantic slave trade. Slavery wasn't invented by the Europeans. It had existed in Africa, but the thing was, you have slavery in many different places. It's not usually based off race or whatever. It's just based off, hey, our guys beat your guys. When the Europeans come in, they already had these notions that Africans were somehow less human than them, than the Europeans. So this just is used to like reinforce these beliefs, like, oh, it's okay to do this thing. It's okay to trade in slaves because our belief system says these people aren't truly human. They're barbaric. They worship pagan gods. You know, they're not civilized. They're naked. So it's okay what we're doing. Now, of course, in real life, it is not okay. But that's the justification that the Europeans used. And between the 16th and 19th century, about 10 million Africans are shipped to the Americas. This is a famous drawing of conditions on a slave ship. Obviously, it's quite miserable, as you would expect. This is bad for, well, obviously for the Africans, but it's especially bad for these new colonies because you're destroying cultures, the Native Americans and the Africans. All of this gold and silver going into Europe create inflation, which I already mentioned. New products are introduced. Actually, did you know horses came over with the Spanish? Horses weren't native to the Americas. But the new products introduced, this is kind of a comprehensive, but not, I'm sure it's not comprehensive. I'm sure there's other stuff. You have stuff that's going over from the New World to Europe. Squash, turkey, coca, peanut, tomato. I don't know why I felt the need to put that in red there. Potato, corn, or maize. Tobacco is a huge cash crop. Cash crop, something you can't eat, but can be sold at a huge profit. And of course, the disease that the New World gives to the Europeans is syphilis. The Europeans trade trinkets, liquor, and guns over to Africa, and then they take things over to the New World, such as things that weren't already in the Americas: coffee, sugarcane, smallpox and malaria, and measles, and whooping cough, and typhus, and diphtheria, and the flu. And these are problematic, obviously. I do not know how they shipped over honeybees. I'm fascinated by this every time I have this slide. As I already mentioned, native populations are ravaged by disease, and colonial rivalries are deepened. Countries will be competing with each other. Ultimately, this will lead to war in some cases, fighting over profitable trade routes, slave routes. Quite frankly, the acquisition of slaves, which is profitable but horrible, obviously. And that will lead to further wars in future chapters that you can look forward to. So, new colonial rivals. You've got here who the major players were. The Spanish were major players. The British, the French. All of these people will be involved in trouble later on. All right. All done now. You kids have a nice night, and farewell.